You're welcome.
Question, is there a public comment portion of this meeting?
There is.
Okay. So we have to switch to YouTube. Is there a YouTube link that we're also?
I just started it up for you. You'll see it should show on the top of your screens live on streaming. For the YouTube,
Okay.
it's just view only, so that's not really for the participation side.
Got it. Okay. I see it. Okay. So when the meeting concludes, I just turn off the stream. I don't have to save it or name it or anything, do I?
Right. For YouTube, it's automatic. So even if you just hit the end button at the bottom of the screen to end the meeting, that automatically stops the video.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Rob, can you hear me okay?
Oh, sounds like there he is.
I'm there. I just have to hit the video. I'm good.
Hey, Rob.
Different than the meetings I've been in.
Okay, so we'll probably begin as soon as we can see Rob. If that's all right with everybody. There he is. Okie dokie. So let's call the meeting. Ed, if I have issues, and I actually started this process at 6 o'clock, so I had some issues. So if I go dark for any reason, Ed, will you take over for me?
Sure.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Okay, let's call the meeting at 6:34. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody stand. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic.
Stands one nation,
One, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you, guys. Mary, any public comment correspondence?
No, we have not received any for the commission.
Okay. And Gregory, I don't see the chat room anymore.
I see it. I have it. I'm good.
Okay, alrighty. All right. Minutes of the previous meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review them? Can I hear, if there's no changes or adjustments, can I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 27th.
I'll second.
Thank you, guys. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the May meeting, say aye, or raise your hand,
Aye.
or whatever method you want. Thank you. Okay, Mary, Director's Report.
So I'll just be super short. Last night I actually was asked to come back to the Center School Ad Hoc Committee meeting and just answer some additional questions. So they're still in process of preparing the recommendations for the Board of Selectmen for possible repurpose of Center School after it's vacated with the new school construction. And it was a great meeting. It's a really nice group of people trying to do good things. And so I enjoyed my time with them last night. I'm sure there'll be more to come in the next coming months once they make their actual recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. And aside from that, we're starting to really try to finalize our details for the summer concerts. I know we spoke quite a bit about summer concerts at our last meeting. And since that time, the guidance has evolved quite a bit. All of a sudden, the guidelines changed, and now, as of July 3rd, municipalities can actually hold concerts with up to 500 people, provided that households sit 15 feet apart. And so it's kind of going back to the original plan that we talked about. As long as we spread out, we can likely have a safer event. And so I'm in the process. I've spoken with the health department and just need to get a plan in front of them and exactly how we're going to go about that. Because if we do agree to do that, we need to make sure that we can actually enforce that 15-foot. So we're going to be working on getting some additional staffing there to remind people. And when we do publish the information for the concerts, we want to make sure that the first time people see the concert information, that all of the information is there so folks know what to expect when they arrive. And so we hope to have that out sometime early next week.
Great. I just want to take 1 minute.
Really it for directors.
Oh, sorry, Mary. I just want to welcome Cassie to the meeting.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm late.
Bye, Cassie.
Sorry, Kathy. Go ahead, Mary, I'm sorry.
No, actually, I want to kind of be short and sweet because I know we have some more business towards the end with beach policies, so I don't want to take up too much of anybody's time, but those are basically the two things that have been taking up, some time the last few weeks over here.
And Mary, when is the first concert? It's not this Friday, it's next Friday?
So our first concert, which has not been publicly announced, but our first concert will be on July 3rd, pending final approval by the health department.
Okay.
Okay, Recreation Supervisors report.
So if Dan were here, he would be telling you that we're gearing up for camp starting on Monday. We do have enough children enrolled to have both Camp Catacopia running as well as Camp Summer Better Than Others are both going to be running, certainly with much smaller attendance than a typical summer, but we're really happy that we have had a favorable response to what we're offering in person. And what we're finding so far, at least, is that the in-person programs and registration are certainly doing a little bit better than any virtual programs that we're offering. And so we're going to watch and see if that trend continues or not. But camps are doing okay, and also our tennis lessons are doing pretty well so far.
Okay.
Mary,
Yes.
that's strictly outside. Everything is outside, correct?
So not everything, mostly everything is outside. So even our Camp Catacopia program, it does meet outdoors. We do have access for the room at the beach if we need to use it. Our half-day program, that does have a classroom as well, but we're planning to use indoor space as little as possible. So the guidance that we're giving to counselors and the expectation is that the vast majority of our activities, including meal periods when possible, are going to be outdoors.
Okay, because I know with sports, they're not allowing any of the summer training. You cannot enter the building at all. That's why I was wondering how we get around that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the guidance through the CIAC or if that's different from the sector guidance that we have regarding outdoor sports. According to what we need to follow here at Park and Rec, we can have actually up to, I think they just extended it to 14 people in one indoor space at a time, providing that you can social distance.
Right.
So that's what we're following.
My question is, well, first of all, I want to clarify that the CIAC can only recommend. They can't force districts, nor do districts have to follow their policy. But if all outdoor sports, I mean, all summer's training, they want it outdoor, they don't want any kids of any group inside. That's why I was wondering how the town balanced that. They're letting one group in and not another.
Ed, it's under the guidance of the child care programs that were, daycare.
Yep.
They're actually requiring everybody to have an appropriate indoor space in order to do it. Because
Well, Rob,
it's going to rain.
Rob, that's a good answer. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Any other questions on Recreation Supervisors report? Okay, Mary, Park Supervisors report?
So I just recently sent out Chris's report to everybody by email. They've been very busy getting fields ready for BBSA. BBSA just started back up this past weekend, and also preparing for the beach. And so those have been the major tasks in addition to normal tasks over the last several weeks.
Okay. Anybody have questions, comments? Monthly financials.
So nothing formal, but we are in good shape as we head towards the last stretch of the current fiscal year.
Hard to believe. Okay. Old business, but we're pretty much covered that, I think, in May. So we are approved, I think, on order 4th, somewhere thereabouts. About there last minute I think I looked at it before it was approved. It's pretty much what we had discussed in May.
Yes, and Joey, I'm so sorry. It might be unique to me, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
my phone. Is everyone else having the same issue?
I can hear okay.
Yeah. As far as the budget, in May, we knew what the numbers were, and everyone is aware it's been approved, correct?
Correct. So the budget was approved by Board of Finance, and then my understanding is that anything with cash to capital has also been approved, but anything that's requiring financing has not yet been approved, and that's going to be approved at a later date.
Okay.
Or actually voted on. I shouldn't say approved. It will be voted on.
Okay. So Mary, within that budget was the dollars for the gazebo. Do you know when when we'll start renovation on the gazebo?
You know what, Joey? I actually did not check to see how that's being financed. If it's being financed by cash, then we can start working on the bids for repair work as early as July. Speaking of the gazebo, I have actually been in touch with Mark Lyon from Brookstock, who organized Brookstock, and he was also in touch with people from the Four Corners Business Association. And so this is a little off topic for where we're talking about it, but just so everybody on the commission is aware that both of those organizations that did fundraising both do support the idea of us repairing the current gazebo as opposed to putting something new there. And so I know the commission was interested in hearing their opinion, and I did receive that from them, from both groups earlier this month.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep that on the agenda. Department COVID-19 response and facility reopening.
So as many folks know on the commission, we've been working with other town boards and agencies to slowly reopen the different facilities around town. What to expect in the short term next. Our next goal is to get the beach opened up on Friday. We're working very hard to that goal. We did submit our seasonal startup for the water testing results, so that's all set with the Department of Health, so we can actually have people use the water according to their guidance now. And we're looking forward to opening the restrooms, the town hall restrooms, the outdoor restrooms opened this past Friday, coinciding with the timing of the start of the farmers market. And we're looking forward to opening the actual bathrooms at Cadogan Park this coming Friday, as well as the restrooms inside the town beach. Next on the agenda after those open will be the reopening of playgrounds. We do expect for that to happen sometime in the very early part of July. And then we've been advised by the health department that basketball courts are not going to be reopened until at least sometime in phase 3. We're expecting phase 3 guidance to be released sometime around the middle of July. Right now they're estimating between the 15th and the 20th we'll have some better guidance for phase 3.
Okay.
Mary, do you project that if we have a concert in the park on Friday the 3rd, there'll be a problem with people utilizing the playground, even though it's not open? And how we would prevent that?
Your point is very well taken, Renee. There's a possibility that the playground will be open before the first concert.
Good.
If that does not come to fruition, what we would do is we would likely fence it a little bit more strongly than what we have right now to try to keep people off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Yep. Go ahead, Cassie.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are there cleaning protocols for the restrooms? I'm just curious.
So right now, we are having everything cleaned daily, and that's different from what we typically do. Once usage starts to pick back up, right now usage is very minimal at any of the town facilities. If we do see that usage is picking back up, we do plan to institute a second cleaning every day.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and Cassie, I should also say sorry. And then in particular to the town beach and the town and the Cadigan bathrooms where we do have camp groups or we were aware of more frequent use, we are going to be having our staff wipe down and address some of the high touch surfaces in the bathrooms and the railings and things as well. But we wouldn't be doing that same process at the town hall. I don't want to misspeak.
Okay. Anyone have any further questions or comments? And Mary, is this, Ed, did you want to speak at all about the trail? I'm not sure where we ended up with that.
I'm not sure either where we ended up on it.
Mary, do you want to just give us a little update or tell us where we might be at with allowing runners or bikers on the trail?
Certainly. So I did have a conversation with the health department earlier today, and the current thinking is that running would be considered as a possible phase 3 activity. And so once we get that phase 3 guidance in the middle of July, around the 15th to the 20th again, that running would be under discussion at that time.
And their concerns are health related or traffic related?
Well, I think that the health department is specifically thinking from the health perspective, and not to put words in anybody's mouth, but because masks are required right now on the Greenway, and because it is not safe to run with a mask on, the thought process is that we can't have people running with masks, and therefore we can't have running. And so that's going to be looked at again with the next phase. I know Connecticut's moving in a great direction. We're all very excited about the idea of being able to continue to open up more, but I do believe that's the thought process behind why the running wasn't allowed in the beginning and why it's still not being considered at this time.
Can you just tell me what's allowed at the track?
I'm sorry, Rob, could you say?
Could you repeat that?
Could you tell me what the rules are at the track at the high school?
Thank you, Rob.
At the track at the high school? It's been so long since we've talked about that. Masks are required, social distancing, and I think walking and running.
So they're allowed to do it, but they have to have a mask, is what you're saying at the high school.
That was the guidance that was in place back in when we first were marking the track, which I think was back in April.
Careful.
Yeah, I understand that the health department's guiding that, and I know that the greenway's super crowded, so I get it. But on the track, when you can, they always say you got to wear a mask if you can't social distance, right? Certainly on the track, unless it's super, super crowded, you can social distance. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
There's no, Rob, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up, Rob, because you can't have, it doesn't make any sense. You're contradicting yourself. You're doing one thing one way, and then you're allowing the exact opposite at the track.
That's not true, guys, because if you are running on the track and you are wearing a mask, you're still going to be away. When you are in lane 6, and if you're running in lane 1, you are not 6 feet away from someone. And if you are both not masked, it's not safe. So
Has anybody gone over to the Greenway or the track and kind of try to get a feeling of what's going on?
That was my next question. Mary?
I'm sorry, I hear Cassie speaking. I wasn't sure if she was finished with her thought.
Go ahead, Cassie.
Observe the track quite often because I walk my dogs up in Gursky, and there are people walking and running. People are trying to stay away, but people are not being consistent about masks. And I think that is why they are keeping this rule on the Greenway, because people aren't really being observant even on the track. So, it's a risk, and there's a lot more usage on the Greenway than there is on the track, especially as the heat comes.
Yeah. If I heard you correctly, Cassie, and I was having a little difficulty hearing you, you said that people are not being good about wearing masks?
Not the runners, no.
Oh, okay. How about,
Track. And
Okay.
walkers too, not everybody being.
not everybody? Yeah, I think there's a sense out there, even though we have signage and whatnot, that if I'm outdoors, I don't need a mask. I think a lot of people are under that impression.
I agree. That's what most people feel. If they're outdoors, they don't need to wear one, but
Yeah.
right
Well,
or wrong.
but you still should have one if you're that close.
Oh, yeah,
Of course.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's wholly dependent on how crowded it is. If there's 4 people on the high school track, I don't think most people, they'll have one with them, but they won't use it. But if there's 40 people, they should definitely wear it. I get it.
Put it on. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it
Go ahead,
it
Eddie.
would be great, Joey, if people police themselves, but they don't. And I'm one of the ones that worries that we're going too, quickly too soon, but that's just me.
No, I understand. I feel the same way, and we can see what's happening in other states right now that are either going too quickly or didn't put precautions in place in the first place. Connecticut actually got things under control. Things were pretty severe here, and I think should be lauded for getting things under control, and it'd be nice to keep it under control.
I think the hard thing is the graduation this past Saturday up at the high school. And, you can put up all the signs you want, and you can send out all the emails blasts you want, but nobody was supposed to get out of their cars until they were told to go into the building. And there was 20 people at Wisconsin graduates standing shoulder to shoulder to take pictures. There was parents in the parking lot at the high school outside their cars, jibber jabbing, and people just walking around. Nobody, a third of the people were not in their cars.
Or with masks.
Yeah. The mask was down around the neck, yeah.
Well, I'm going to make Renee a little bit happy because when we closed the trail and you saw some posts on it, I got numbers from the census, from the IR counter. We had 24,000 plus or minus people in March. Those are not unique users, obviously, because we don't know how often someone is passing the box, but that's still a apples to apples number. In April, we had 300 and some odd users, and in May, the box picked up 600 users. So we were really successful when we shut that trail down. We really have to look at the change in those numbers. You're never going to keep everyone off. You're never going to get everyone and so on. But just on that one goal, we were incredibly successful, and I should credit the folks in Brookfield that largely followed the rules and stayed off the trail. That's a significant change in those numbers.
So I can't remember. Is it open now? Did it just open? Is it about to open? Please refresh.
Yeah, it opened last week, Mary?
The Greenway opened back on the 10th.
Right.
Oh, that's
So-
Do we have any
Okay.
numbers yet? Or you can't?
You can view it online. If you go to UConn, I forget the website address, but the online is all the numbers, real-time data for every trail that's being surveyed or monitored.
We won't get a report though, Rob. Usually they do quarterly. They actually put out a report for April and May, I think, because a lot of the trail participants in the study were curious. I don't know, John, if he'll do that each month. It would be nice if they release the numbers month by month, at least for the next, several upcoming months. It'd be really nice to
ask them though, because that'd be great to see if we open
Yeah,
and so many people. If you could ask them, that'd be great.
I have asked him. In fact, we asked him for April's earlier, and because they work through UConn and the data is crunched and the reports are created separately, they were unable to do that, to accommodate us. So we'll see if they can continue to do that for us. Most of the trails, as you all know, didn't close. We were the only ones that closed. So, but the numbers were up 50% on virtually every trail. Some of them were up 170, 130% around the state. So the usage was just skyrocketed during the last month. Okay, any other questions about, and I'm sorry, you laid out an incredible case for allowing on the Greenway. We're going to have to, unfortunately, go with what the health is allowing us right now. We can continue to make our what's known, and we'll go from there, and hopefully it won't be too much longer. Anyone have any questions or comments on that issue?
Joey, it keeps cutting out. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Same thing, Rob.
Does anyone have any other questions on the issue of running or the next phase for the Greenway? Okay, Mary, we can move along.
Okay, so just a quick recap. We were going to talk about the beach, the boat, and the tennis fees, and at the last meeting, we talked about how I would just kind of put a percentage on what we were going to have as our fees and the number of days of that season versus the number of days of our current season with the June 26th start. And I did come up with the fees. So family passes are going to be $105. Individual passes are going to be $76, and a senior family pass is going to be $88. And again, that senior family pass is for grandparents and up to 4 grandkids. Any senior in town is eligible for a free beach pass still.
So I don't have the numbers that you gave us right in front of me. Is there a percentage that you took off across the board?
Basically how I calculated it, I'm sure I could have calculated it by percentage, but I basically took the cost per day at that number of days, and then I applied it to the cost per day at this number of days.
Okay. And how has registration been?
Well, we just really started taking beach pass registration today. We've been a little hesitant to start before we had all the policies in place because we're still working through tonight a little bit about how we're going to manage the gate, guests, and other items. And so we wanted folks to be informed when they purchase their passes. We did have some people, I think we sold probably 10 or 12 passes just today for families. But we're expecting our phone to be very, very busy over the next couple of days, and we do hope to release some detailed information for people on which to base their decisions by tomorrow.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Are we going over the policies or?
Yes, under new business, we can go under over the policies if that's okay. I was just kind of finishing up on the old business.
Oh, okay.
Right. Just for the fees and whatnot. Anybody have any questions, tennis fees or boat and beach fees, what Mary's doing? Okay, Mary, we can move along. New business to beach policies.
Okay, so a couple of things worth discussing at the commission level tonight for sure would be how we're going to manage season passes versus daily passes at the gate. And so typically we do allow residents to purchase resident day passes at the gate, and then we also allow them to purchase guest passes at the gate. Now we are struggling with issues of capacity, just like all the inland beaches are, and trying to figure out the most fair way of allowing residents to use the beach. And so I did some research, and you know, Rob has a very different but awesome way of kind of handling things in Reading, and he shifted to all daily passes. And then a lot of other communities that are in process of taking registrations for their passes have really kind of gone the opposite direction and have chosen to do season pass only with no passes at the gate. And so there are certainly good and bad in any decision, but I feel like we might this year want to go to season passes. And the reason for that are a few. We certainly want to, at the gate, minimize the amount of contact that our gate guards have with any patron coming in. And so when we're doing day passes at the gate, certainly the length of time that our gate guard is talking to that family is going to be longer. There's going to be a transaction, whether it's by credit card or by cash or by check, and there's going to be an exchange of a receipt. it's a lot to ask of our gate guards to determine if we decide to only have Brookfield residents be able to purchase at the gate. Well, who within a certain party approaching the gate is a Brookfield resident, who might be a guest. You know, a lot of our gate guards are high school or early college age. We feel like it's a lot of responsibility resting on their shoulders. And then for the purpose of contact tracing, should contact tracing be needed, if we do have everybody registered as season pass holders, we have all their contact information. If we have people able to purchase daily guest passes, you know, typically we don't require the same level of detail. We do check a driver's license, we ensure that they're a Brookfield resident, but we wouldn't have the email and the phone number in our computer system necessarily in case we do need to reach out and contact. So, you know, for those reasons, I'm kind of feeling like we might want to this year say, let's sell season passes, let's not have any transactions at the gate, and we can advise people that for the reasons I just said, and there's probably other valid reasons that we're going to choose to just do season passes for the year.
Can I ask a quick question? So what happens if a family who has a season pass brings, you know, a cousin who's staying for the week, so on and so forth? Would we allow that, just absorb if it's one person? How would we address something, or they just can't come to the beach that week?
So I would love the commission to maybe give some guidance as to what folks on the commission think is reasonable. I think there might be a line between having family members coming and staying and living in the household versus bringing somebody who lives 2 towns over for the day. So if I were going to choose, you know, where we would land, I would say that I could understand if family members had family coming in and visiting them and staying in their home, that we would want to try to accommodate that somehow. But that would probably be where the accommodation would logically want to stop, unless people on the commission felt differently, and then we would work to a different goal.
How everybody feels. Comment?
I think it's okay to go to season pass only and not do the day passes. I know that's what Newtown is doing. But Mary, have you thought about, you know, we don't know what the usage is going to be. Either there's going to be, people aren't going to be able to get in because it's full, or people aren't going to want to go because they're worried about, you know, COVID still being around. Have you done any research on going to a reservation system? I know Newtown has done that, and when I went to Jones Farm to go strawberry picking, it was really easy to use online, and you just pick a time slot, you know, it says, well, it's full or not, you register, and it's really easy to use.
Yes, thank you.
The hard thing is going to be turning people away.
And I agree, and you know, and back when we were talking in May, and the beach seemed so very far away at the time, it's hard to predict what the interest was going to be, and it's still hard for us to predict that. But based on the level of phone calls that we have been fielding, thank you, Liz, you know, lately, it seems like there's a very strong interest in the beach, and I can appreciate that we don't want people coming to the beach and getting frustrated if they're being turned away. And so the decision is that, do we start immediately doing reservations, or do we give it a few days with the idea that we can move to reservations very quickly? And John, I have actually done research on 2 different reservation systems. I actually had a webinar or a conference call with the same company that Newtown is using yesterday, and learned about their system. And then I actually talked to the folks that from eTrack, which is our current registration system that we use already. And so of the 2, I mean, there's certainly good and bad in both, but of the 2, using our current registration system would make a little bit more sense. Many families are already set up with their information in our system. We've not yet used the online version, but we can, and people would be able to fairly easily start to make their own reservations. And if they can't make reservations, then we could help them through the office. And so we do have something in place, and we do have something in place that we can begin as early next week if needed.
How about Renee? Your thoughts, Renee?
I'm a little all over the map with it because I'm still stuck on 500 people being at a concert in the park. Like, it just all seems too soon to me. Like, all of a sudden, we're just going to open the floodgates to everything. So I'm honestly concerned with the whole thing, how it's going to all be policed, how teenagers are going to handle people getting nasty with them at the gate. Like,
Yeah, I'm concerned about that too. Even if we go with seasons passes, I'm concerned that they're going to deal with that. There's just going to be people showing up
they're
there.
going to, they're going to have to turn people away. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I think of my own teenagers, and I'm not sure they're going to have, we're going to have some really strong kids at the gate that are going to be able to deal with people who are going to be pissed.
Is there a way to send out an email blast to the community so that they know we're going to, season passes only, so that they're informed?
I'm sure we can do that. Yeah. Selectmen's, newsletter and so forth. It will minimize it. There's still going to be some people. So Renee, it sounds like you are also leaning seasons passes, Brookfield families only. Is that correct, Renee?
I mean,
Mary,
I think that's a lot to ask of people. I mean, so you just can't go to the beach for one day, like you have to buy a season pass.
I'm so sorry for my dog.
So Mary, or everyone, I have two more questions. The first one is, I read through your notes, Mary, about the beach topic and having it only for Brookfield residents. And initially that was my feeling, we shouldn't sell to Bethel, but the director of Newtown told me that there was some lawsuit in Wilton where you're actually not allowed to restrict other towns using your facilities or your beach. So I don't know if we can do that legally, or maybe that changes with COVID. But the other thing that I was thinking is, do we increase the cost of the season pass for Bethel residents? That's one option. And the second question is, are we going to need to have, on the first few days of the beach opening, a police presence at the gate to support the gate attendants? So two questions.
Yeah, no, thank you, John, and I'll try to answer both, but if I get lost on the first one, please redirect me for the second one. So in terms of the police presence, we do always have a waterfront director or assistant director on site as well. So the gate guard definitely is not going to be on their own island up at the gate, and especially, early in the season, we'll plan to have our supervisors very present there as well. I know that we can always count on support from the police department if needed, and so I would say that if we find ourselves in a situation of feeling overwhelmed by the volume of requests that we can't accommodate, or that people are not being receptive to what we have to say at the gate, that we could certainly call and ask the police to come by and to have a presence there for some period of time, and I don't think that would be an issue. As far as the non-resident piece, that's another thing that we need to really decide tonight, is how to manage our Bethel residents, because we talked briefly about it last time, and now again, it's a little closer, it's a little bit more real. And after I sent out the information to you this afternoon, I actually went back and I printed out the roster of the number of Bethel beach passes that we sold last year and the year before, just so you all have some frame of reference as to kind of the numbers that we're talking about. And so I know last month we also talked about, would it be reasonable to allow Bethel resident passes, people who purchased passes last year, to purchase them again this year and then limit it there? Like there are some different places where we might be able to ever have a limit. So last year, we had a total of 103 individual passes issued to Bethel families, which equates to about 18 families. And that's what was the 2019 total. And the year before that, it was a little bit less. It was right after the macro burst, just to kind of put it in some perspective. So we had a total of 64 individual Bethel passes issued, which equates to about 10 or 11 families.
That's still a significant number, and the worst thing that we want to have is somebody coming up to the gate from Brookfield, they can't get in because it's full, and they see 3 people, 3 families from Bethel that they know. So that's.
I said that last time, John.
And I
That's
agree
cool.
with that. I agree
Yeah.
with
Yep,
I agree too.
that was
Are
our
we-
concern last meeting.
Are we charging the same price for Bethel season passes as we are for Brookfield?
Say that
No,
again.
actually, the season pass price for Bethel would be double the cost of Brookfield, so it would be
It-
$210 instead of the 105.
Okay.
Okay,
ahead.
for me to share my perspective now?
Yes, go ahead.
Please.
We actually switched, I know you were saying gate fees only instead of season passes, because we were concerned of how many times people can get it. But people have been able to get as many times as they need with our reservation system. And it's the cost that we were concerned with. So we're selling season passes as of tomorrow. And they could get credit for the 4 days. We've been open for a week and a half now. So anybody who paid a daily fee can deduct it, which is what we do every year. If somebody goes before they buy their pass, they could bring the receipt and deduct it. So we're doing that. Now, I've looked at the other towns as well. And if you have season pass only, right, which I'm not objecting to it. Well, I have one of the biggest things about having a pass is inviting a friend to go with you that's out of town, a friend of yours, or your child, you get a pass for your family, but they want to invite a friend, to go to the beach. That's a pretty common thing, right? So if we went with season passes, I would think that, a family can have maybe a guest limit, or something like that, and pay for it at the gate. That's just my point of view. And I'm okay, not if you don't want to pay daily fees at the gate, but you should be able to bring a guest. And you could also, to minimize contact, when we raised our prices for season passes, we gave 4 free guest passes. And it's a pretty common thing. But somebody could also buy a couple of guest passes. We have a punch card that people use to bring their guests. They could buy it from the office and they could just punch it, so it's a non-issue. Certainly capping Bethel residents, I totally agree with that. But the thing you guys are saying about the gate guard, and I get it, the stress of saying, no, we're at capacity. I mean, capacity is something that we don't have any control over. We only have control over who we allow to get a pass, if we allow guests of residents that have passes. I get it with the daily fee, but the kids that are working at the grocery store and are working at Bagel Man and working everywhere, they're collecting money. They're doing all the things. They have the sneeze guards that protect them. They have the hand washing, they're accepting cash, all those things. The only difference between that and this particular thing is the anger of somebody who's getting shut out. But certainly if we're dictated to have 50%, to operate the beach at 50% of a capacity or a number that we generate, nobody could object to that, So other than the issue of, people from out of town having their own pass affecting their number, if you decide to go not letting people pay a daily fee and just passes only, I do think you should work out some way somebody could bring a guest, even if it's buy some guest passes through the office somehow, or buy them in advance, buy a book. I know Monroe at their Wolf Park, to walk up on your own, it's $20 a person. But if you're my brother-in-law lives in town, he buys a season pass, but they sell books of 10 for $20 to bring guests. And that it sort of limits it a little bit. It does the best of both.
Okay.
I think going with a friend is a key thing, even if you control how it's done. Okay.
How about, thank you, Rob. Cassie, what are your thoughts?
Can you guys hear me? I'm having issues.
I can.
Can you? Okay.
Just barely.
My thought is that I don't think we should have Bethel residents. personally, nothing against Bethel, but I feel that if a Brookfield resident is denied because there are Bethel families there, I don't think that's exactly fair. I think, unfortunately, you have to kind of go with season passes because, but the expense worries me because for some people who can't afford a season pass and just wants to go to the beach for a day, if you're going to go to the reservation system, that's going to be very difficult for people to figure out, you know, unless you factor that in with the reservation system, how many spots you're going to allow for, you know, day passes. And I think if you want to do a guest policy, if you have out of town people and you have a season pass, then you have to call the office and make arrangements to have people come as part of your quote unquote family. I think then that way you're kind of, we know ahead of time who's a resident, who's not, who's a guest, and then that takes the onus off who's ever at the gate. Because even, you know, on paper, everybody's going to be great, but you're always going to have people who are going to make a scene and not be happy. And,
Right.
and that's the reality of it.
Right.
That's just my
And
thought.
yeah. And you know, it's funny because you hope that people would understand that this is a very different year. You know, it's not going to model last year, the year before, prior years. One would hope that people would say, if they went to the gate, I'm sorry, there's no day passes this year. You would hope people would understand. But we've all seen, you know, there's a mix of thoughts out there right now. There's some people that think all of this is ridiculous, everywhere on the spectrum. So, well, it sounds and Ed, I'm sorry, I don't think you had a chance to weigh in on this. So let's give Ed a shot, and then we can sort of see if we can crystallize a policy that everybody's thinking. Ed?
Yeah, I think that the season pass is the best solution for this particular year. And I share what Cassie said. I'm concerned about, you know, people from out of town maybe getting priority over Brookfield residents. But, you know, we can work that out. So I'm for the season pass.
And Bethel residents, do you know Bethel, just Brookfield? Season pass Bethel.
You have to figure out, is it going to be a low number, a high number? Are they going to use it a lot? They're not going to use it a lot. Or are we going to go on an honor system and let them come as a guest with somebody else?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like everybody is, Mary, at least my takeaway was everybody feels pretty strong about seasons pass only. I like the idea, I think Rob had, and it happens in other avenues, that you get 4 guest passes or X guest passes, and then a family could plan if they know cousins are coming in mid-August, well, they hold on to their passes, and anything could be worked out if a family called and said, you know, we have an unusual situation, they should be directed to call the office, and you can work that out on case-by-case basis. As far as Bethel, how do you all feel about the idea of just getting started for a couple of weeks? As Mary said, seeing what our numbers look like, seeing what the usage is like, maybe allowing it, you know, in a month, maybe August 1st if we feel we want to. We don't have to. Maybe offering a pass just for weekday use. What about anything like that? Or do you want to just say no for the season?
I think we should say no until a certain date, say no until July 4th or whatever that date may be, and then we're going to revisit it to make a decision whether or not we're going to allow it based on the numbers, because nobody knows what the usage is going to be. I know a lot of churches have started parking lot services, and, you know, they make spots for 50 cars and 15 show up. At least that's what's happened at St. Joe's and St. Paul's, and CCB is going to start this Sunday as well, their first parking lot service. So I'd say it'd be okay and for the office, I know they get a lot of phone calls and people are upset, like checking to see if they're going to be able to get their Bethel, you know, season pass and stuff. But I'd say, you know, we just say until we see what the numbers are going to be, then we have a certain date to revisit that decision.
Anybody else?
I just have a feeling like I wanted to buy a pass. You know, if it's season passes, I want to buy it. But say my son and 3 friends have passes with their families, or they buy individuals for their kids, right? So if there's a friend of theirs that wants to join them because they, you know, I just want a way that can happen by purchasing a limited number of passes to bring guests. I just want that to be part of it as an option. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like it could be, you know, I don't know, 10 passes a month or 5 you know, whatever, just so people who want to go swimming with their friends who don't have a pass, and no walk-ups, it's just a person who bought a pass should have a way to buy a guest pass in some limited manner.
Right.
Maybe it's only I don't know.
Why not hand out, like, you know, when they come in to buy their season pass in the office, give them 5 guest passes for the season, or 10, or whatever that number may be. But
say you give them 5, we give 4, and say you use, I mean, we allow people to bring the guests, but if you give them 4 with the pass, they bring friends, and maybe like a month from now they can buy 4. If
right.
That's a reasonable balance, because you don't want people abusing it and getting around the non-resident thing, but you want people to bring their friends. I think it'll work.
I like the idea of some fashion of guest passes for a season pass, but my concern about printing 4 little tickets for them to have is they can today, especially, so easily be recreated.
No,
so I'm not sure I like that idea. You know,
they give them up. I mean, they hand them in.
I know, but they can be recreated.
They can be duplicated, though. That's what Joey is saying. They can be duplicated.
So I kind of like the idea of saying if you have a season pass holder, you have 5 passes, guest passes this year, but you have to call the office and you have to register when the guest is coming. And then the office can check off. They've got 4 left, 3 left, you know, whatever. I don't think we have a lot of people this year doing that. I
think it's the most common thing. Every single person at my beach invites a friend to with them to join it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Avoid duplication. We give the guest passes, but we put a stamp, we have a color. They're colored paper, and then on the back we put a stamp of a different color on the back of every guest pass. There's no way they could duplicate that.
Well, or I guess they can also record who the family is, and then we could keep count that way, so they couldn't duplicate them. How about Renee? How do you feel about that?
Can I maybe, before somebody else speaks, if I may just interject, as people are talking, you know, sometimes it helps to solidify some different ideas here too. And so if we were to go to a reservation system, let's just say we're going to go to a reservation system, and families are going to be signing up for the time that they want to go to the beach and the day that they want to go to the beach. If they wanted to bring a guest, at that point in time, we could actually sign a guest up for that same day and time. So a family could call us and say, I'm coming to the beach on Tuesday. I have a 10 o'clock slot. I want to bring so-and-so with me. Can you please, sign them up for that time? Here's my credit card for the $10 for my guest fee. And then they're all set. They have their guests. We have non-contact at the gate. We have the ability to still maintain the numbers that we need to have or not exceed at the beach. And so maybe that's a happy medium for folks. I'm not sure if I'm on the right track or not based upon people's thoughts.
I'm not sure I like a reservation system, because I know back when my kids were young, going to the beach often was so spontaneous. You know, I never knew on Tuesday or even Wednesday that we were going on Thursday. That wasn't all the time, but it was often. So I pass, and then I feel like they have to go through extra steps every time they want to go to the beach, and that's going to be on a moment's notice. I think,
Joey, I think this year it's a different situation, and I think you're going to have to go to the reservation system, and I think the sooner you go to it, the better. I'm curious how that's going to unfold, and as people have registered, have you told for season passes? Have you told them, Mary, that it is a possibility that we are going to a reservation system? Do they know that?
We have been talking about capacity, and that we're having discussions tonight, and that more information is going to be released tomorrow. So we did our best to try to inform people that we didn't know exactly what to expect, but to expect some more information.
I would agree with Cassie that going to a reservation system, it's a different world today, and I think that's the easiest way to avoid conflict at the gate and people knowing when they can go, when they've got to leave. It makes sense knowing what we know and what we're dealing with.
Renee?
And I'm sorry, not maybe a happy medium again. I like to keep the reservation system is the position that people will be guaranteed to know that when they get to the gate, they're not going to be disappointed. But then that doesn't mean that if they're a season pass holder, that they can't even actually hop on that day and check and see if they can still sign up. I mean, we're talking you can go onto our system, check an hour before you want to go to the beach, and you'll know, like, from your home if you can actually do that and not be upset when you get to the gate. And so maybe that makes some sense. And I know early on I was like, well, maybe we're not going to need to use it. And then it really probably is the right way to go. It's definitely going to be a lot more time intensive for us to set it up in here, but the thought of having families with their littles, kind of toddling over to the gate and then being turned away is really more than I think I can bear. And so I would much rather us err on the side of going to reservations, and then, hey, if we see that reservations aren't needed, maybe we're not getting anywhere near capacity, and we can maybe back off the other direction instead as the season goes on. Maybe it's better to start with reservations and work our way to not reservations if not needed.
Okay, that works. It seems like that's how everybody's leaning. That's fine with me then, yep. Okay, so are there any other
I see Rob's mouse, but I can't hear him.
You're muted,
Yeah.
Rob.
He's on mute.
So you could have reservations and have limited capacity at the gate as well, and see how that goes. People can reserve a spot to be guaranteed of it. Say 100 people reserve it, right? Then you could have 70 up to 75 people can walk up that didn't reserve it.
That might be a little complicated to begin with. I'd keep it kind of simple as we roll this out. That's not a bad idea. Maybe if we're not at capacity, things are going well, but I would keep it simple. So, Mary, have we covered what you wanted to cover, and then we can make a motion on some of these? So it's pretty much reservation system, season pass right now, and then some kind of a guest pass situation. With a reservation, to your point, that makes that pretty easy. But same thing, I don't want it to be unlimited, because I don't want a family to make a reservation if there's 5 people and then we're at capacity and some other family can't go to the beach that day. So I'm for a limited number of guests. So is there anything else that you need to discuss with us, Mary, before we can button these 3 things down?
Thank you. If we are going to go to a reservation policy, I would just want to confirm that people are in agreement that we're just going to basically split the day in half, and that we would have people sign up for a morning, say a 10 to 1:45, or an afternoon, which would be about 2 until 5:45. Our hours are 10 to 6. That would give a 15-minute buffer on either side for traffic going back and forth. It's not going to pigeonhole people into like a small amount of time. It's going to give a little flexibility within the parameters that would be reasonable for use. Does that sound like a good place to start?
I'd agree.
Yeah, you work on the weekend. Is your hours different, Mary? Thought you started later on Sundays, a lot later.
We actually this year, Rob, you're right. We have in the past, but this year we wanted to go to standard hours, and
Great.
so we're going to be 10 to 6 daily.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So, Mary, you need a motion or would like a motion from us on just seasons passes, no Bethel. We can probably, in a reservation system, we might even be able to wrap that all into one motion. Would that cover what you're looking for us to decide tonight?
It would, just clarification on no day passes at the gate, any guest passes would need to go through Park and Rec through the office. And we should probably limit the amount of guest passes that a family can purchase for a day to maybe 1 or 2 at the most. I would think we would want to have that in someplace.
So 2 per day, and
I'd say,
it sounds the most you can purchase to bring friends is 2 per day. You have to
Do you wanna
purchase those in
cap-
advance, right? That's
do you
great.
want to cap a family for the year so one family doesn't just keep bringing, well, they're going to pay for the passes, right, Mary? Even though they're not going to be included, they're going to pay for the pass?
Yeah, I'd pay, make it.
Yes, I think we would be wise to continue to charge for guest passes as we always have.
Limiting a family on the year, like 2 per day, 10 per year, no need to do that.
I think that would be logistically very hard for us to track. The daily would be fairly easy. More than that would be challenging. The only other thing to briefly discuss would be if we want to limit the amount of reservations that a family should be making on a weekly basis. If we want to start off giving some guidance as, you could pick 2 weekdays and 1 weekend slot. If it's worth us starting someplace to gauge how use is, and then we can always change depending on how use and capacity go. Something maybe to talk about tonight as well.
What we just did, we just changed ours today. So we had 2 per week, 2 in a 14-day period is what we did. Then we immediately changed it to 3 to give people, and no consecutive days is what we did. And that now, if people reserve, once it's the day before, we don't even worry about the consecutive days. It's just we wanted to make sure that nobody got shut out in advance. So.
Yeah, and again, this can all change in 2 weeks if we find that there's ample room for everybody. So, okay, so first, can I hear a motion on seasons passes only, reservation system with 2 guests per day in half-day
Slots.
time slots? Anybody want to take a stab at that? It's a biggie. Come on, John, you're a good word crafter.
I thought you just said it.
What you said, Joey, yeah. What you said, Joey,
I don't really-
reservation system, yeah.
Can you hear me? I actually have been making notes. I kind of wrote something. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Sure.
Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Okay. A motion was made to offer season passes only with 2 guest passes per day purchased prior to weekend. No daily passes and no Bethel passes will be provided for now until usage is determined. A reservation system will be implemented with a day split to mornings and afternoons. And I didn't get the whole for sure what you guys wanted, but I wasn't sure about. With the day split morning and afternoons and allowing 2 reservations per week with no consecutive days. But I think you guys changed that. Does that cover everything, or?
What number do you think is good, Mary? How many per week? 3 or 4 to start with?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with 3. I think that might be a reasonable place for us to begin. We do have the luxury, we can actually limit the amount of days in advance that we can show people that they can register for or reserve. So if we just put out a week, we can, people can pick 3 out of the 7 days, up to 3 out of the 7 days, ask them not to do it consecutively. I think that's a reasonable place to begin.
Yeah, and it won't get too ahead that way. But Liz, that was an absolutely awesome job. Does anybody want to change anything that Liz said, except what Mary just changed for 3 reservations per week? Is there any other
Do you want me
change?
to read it again? Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Read it again, Liz.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
A motion was made to offer season passes only with 2 guest passes per day purchased prior to weekends. No daily passes and no Bethel passes offered until usage is determined. A reservation system will be implemented with the day split mornings and afternoons, and 3 reservations allowed per week with no consecutive days.
I'll make that motion, or Joey can make the motion and I'll second it.
I'll make the motion and I'll take John's second. Well, I think Rob is holding up. Rob wants the second.
Yeah, I
You guys
seconded
can
it
pick it
before
out.
you even made the motion.
I don't think that's allowed. Okay, Mary, is there anything we missed in that motion?
The only thing I would ask for would be we're a little vague in when we're going to let Bethel residents know when we're going to be reevaluating, which is reasonable because we don't really know how long it's going to take, but perhaps we should set a goal date by which we should reevaluate based on usage, even if it's just for internal use, so we can let Bethel residents know because we're getting a lot of interest.
August.
About July 5th, is that enough time to determine?
Really.
The 15th of July.
That's where my head was going, the 15th. I think Mary needs a couple of weeks. Yeah, I think.
That's good by me, 15th.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So do you want to redo the motion then? I just changed it a little bit.
Make
Would
it a
that help or
separate
no?
I think
second
this
one?
was good. So we've got a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right.
How far in advance are they gonna be able to make a reservation?
A week, Mary said Mary said you could do any time frame that you wanted, but I think doing a week out is fine.
Yeah, a week or
Okay.
10 days. That way somebody can reserve the following weekend. You know, I'm away this weekend, they could snag a day. Try to plan, you plan.
So if I bought a season pass, like I'm just want to make this clear in my own head. If I buy a season pass and I want to make a reservation for say a week from tomorrow for next Thursday, and I want to bring 2 guests. Thursday arrives and now it's like massive thunder, lightning, and the beach is closed. Are we going to process refunds or are we going to just do it on a no refund basis? Like, is that something we have to discuss for guests?
Because of the guests, I was going to say the season pass holder.
Yeah, so Renee, that's a really good point, and we wouldn't hold anybody's money hostage in that case. We would offer to roll it over to a new date for them. And you brought up a really good point as well in the fact that we'll need to educate people that when they make their reservation, they want to call and reserve their guest passes for that same day. So that way they are more likely to have, we're not likely to meet capacity. So I would hate for somebody to wait until, if they reserve for next Thursday, they call us that Thursday morning saying, oh, I'm going to add 2 guest passes, but you're like, oh my gosh, we have 100 people already. We can't accept you. We'll want to let people know that they'll need to kind of try to plan their guests as much as possible and give us as much advance notice as we can try to accommodate.
Right.
I think
And let me ask you this too. Sorry, Joey. Are we going to be doing any like health screening at the gate? Like, are they going to be taking temperatures and any of that at the gate, or no, we're not doing that?
So that actually has recently evolved, Renee. So thank you for asking that really important question. So up until a couple of days ago, we were going to need to take temperatures at the gate. The guidance actually changed for the Office of Early Childhood for camps. And as a result, we were able to change that for our beachfront as well. So we're going to be posting and educating people on, don't come to the beach if you're not feeling well, don't come to the beach if you have any symptoms, but we don't actually have to do any screening.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. We have the thermometers, but we're not doing it at the beach because we're outside and we're spread apart. But at our camp, we're still doing that. That just changed today?
It just changed earlier this week. There was an addition to the OEC, and they changed the group numbers up to 14, and they said no temperatures.
Great.
And are you going to be taking the guest information in the event that you have to contact them, or no?
I'm sorry, are we taking their information, Renee? Was that the question?
Yeah, like say I bring a guest, are you going to be asking for the information for that guest so that you'd be able to contact them? Or would you then contact the season holder to tell their guest? God forbid.
No,
Yes, thank you. So the way that our system works, the most logical way for our system would be for us to input the guest information.
Okay.
And then when you go to the beach that day, when you check in, you're going to check in under your name, and then you're going to check in under the guest for the guest under their name as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely essential. All right. I started to say this will be a little trial and error, but I think people will find their way. If they get locked out of a reservation because they waited, everybody will adjust to make it work for them. And I think the 15th, it gives you some time, Mary, that we can look at everything and see if we want to make any changes to it. Is there anything else, Mary, on the agenda that you need to discuss with us?
The beach is so very helpful. The only one additional thing is some guidance. We don't really have anything in place in terms of charging any additional pass fees for caregivers, babysitters, nannies. And so working policy has really been that we've allowed that person to take the place of a parent on the family pass. And I just kind of want to, as long as we're talking so in depth about the beach, kind of make you all aware of that and ask if we should continue that practice or if we should maybe consider charging an additional fee for any caregiver to be added to the family pass.
What we do in Reading is they get 2 adults and the dependents that live there, and many parents have a nanny in place of the husband or the other way around. So we have a fee, $25 for an additional adult. So if they want the dad and the nanny, that's what we do. You can, whatever you want, it's okay by me.
To me, if they're not all, if I understand, Mary, you're not going to have mom, dad, and nanny there together. So if nanny's there during the week and mom's there on the weekend or dad, I'm fine with not adding a charge. That's just my opinion. Anybody else?
I'm okay.
I agree.
I agree, as long as that person is also registered. You
That's
want
true.
information, just so you know that person they're swapping out.
I think any family would be able to tell you, I have a nanny will be accompanying my kids to the beach, and we should have all their information.
I think my son might want to be somebody's nanny so he doesn't have to buy a pass and his name will be on the list. I'm just thinking like a criminal. Sorry.
What about a summer babysitter who's 16 or 17 years old?
But again, if she's there in place of mom or dad, what difference does it make?
No, even though it said that anybody under 18 should be supervised, but if they're going to be in lieu of a parent, that's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's true, Ed.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary, what is the policy? Do they have to be over 18 to accompany small children to the beach?
So we don't have a specific policy in regards to how old a caregiver needs to be in order to accompany a child, at least not that I'm aware of. I think, reasonably a parent is only going to entrust somebody that is trustworthy to bring their child to a body of water, regardless of that person's age. And I'm sure that there are, 17-year-olds who are certainly capable and trustworthy of that. And I'm sure there are probably 19-year-olds who are not. And so the purpose for us putting in the 18 is that typically commission policy is that we do allow children over the age of 12 and over, to be dropped off at the beach. And so this year, because of all the additional, modifications and restrictions, we didn't really feel comfortable having somebody of that age on their own. And so we did want to make sure that we had an older adult or older caregiver present for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah,
but if the commission would like us to, I'm so sorry, Ed. If the commission would like us to reduce that age, I certainly don't object. That was just something that I think Reading might have put in place, and I think I might have seen it someplace else as well. And we kind of started with 18.
No, we have 18.
I don't have a problem with that because I'm assuming that parents will entrust their children. Like we said, it could be somebody 16 or 17. But we put in there minors under the age of 18 must be accompanied by an adult at the park. But now there could potentially be somebody there 16 or 17 babysitting the kids. That's I'm just wondering if anybody comes back to us.
Well, maybe that would self-correct the 16-year-old, if she's accompanying younger kids, then there isn't an 18-year-old or someone 18 or older. So that it's almost in the rule that we can't have somebody 16 bringing 2 9-year-olds to the beach. So I think
you guys,
yeah,
we have the rule that says 18 or older, but in reality, babysitters can be 17 and we won't notice if they're doing a good job. So we
We can't
Till
police
they're
every.
8, till there's a problem. And then we ask, how old are you? Oh, you can't.
Right. Well, so much of what we're going through, we're assuming people are going to discipline themselves and make the right decision. Because I agree with you. You could have a 20-year-old that's not mature, and you could have a 16-year-old that is. So, okay, just wondering, not.
Yep. I think we just it's going to be a little trial and error, like I said, and we'll self-correct. If a parent sends a 16-year-old who's not, then, I guess that can be noted, and we can speak to the parent and saying the rule's 18 and over and correct it. But if it's going well and the 17-year-old is very mature, then we leave it alone. All right? Mary?
That's all I have. Thank you all again so very much for working through this. This is, again, more sticky stuff, and I really do appreciate everybody's point of view and another great discussion this evening. So thank you again, truly.
So is the beach opening Friday?
Yes, we are on track to open on Friday.
You're going to be able to get the reservation thing, the info out tomorrow so people can do it?
So it's going to be a little rough, but we'll find a way to make it work. What we're going to be doing in terms of reservations is people are going to be signing up for a program. So we can actually start doing that process and signing people up for the programs until we can turn it around and have them sign themselves up. So there's going to be a little bit of a transition, a little bit of a pivot, so to speak, but I'm sure we can make it work. I'm sure people are going to be very understanding that this is very much in flux for the next couple of days and that we're just doing the best we can. And by early next week, all of the little bumps should be much better worked out. I think people are just going to be grateful to be able to go to the beach and get wet.
Yeah, the first weekend's going to be the toughest part. If you're starting on a Friday and somebody can't make a reservation because there's nobody in the office, it might be rough the first weekend.
I agree, and we had actually talked internally in the office about trying to staff a few hours a day this weekend, so we didn't make anybody unnecessarily upset with not having the option of reaching us for that reason. So we are working on that here too.
Great.
Good. Thanks, Mary.
You want to come join us, Rob? Or?
Yeah.
If you show me how to use your program, you don't use RecTrack. Otherwise, I could jump in.
Thank you.
Mary, great job. And next year, we promise you, we'll make a motion here. No macro bursts, no COVID-19. Who wants to make that motion for Mary? No, we're not going to do that. Poor Mary. It's going to be a great year next year, Mary. I can feel it. So can I hear the favorite motion that we have for some of us? Maybe all of
Motion
us.
to adjourn.
I'll
There you
second.
go. There's the girl. Can I have a second to
I'll
Renee's
second.
motion?
Yep.
John, all those in favor of closing the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful, great discussion, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time, too. All right, very good.
Thanks,
Liz,
Mary.
the time is 7:50.
Be safe.
Adjourned. Great, guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Be safe, everyone.
Bye.
Stay cool.